I would like to explain some practicalities about a smaller group of interested delegations that wants to handle the budget issues that remained open. It will be this group will be led by Australia as the chair of budget subcommittee, and in order to provide for equal participation of delegations, we, at least for the first meeting, we will offer translation. Therefore, this group of interested countries will meet here in this room tonight at 6 o'clock. The desire of the chair, and that is also at their discretion, is that at this first meeting there are only representatives of contracting governments present. So I hope all those countries who have raised their concerns with the budget can be here at 6 o'clock, but that doesn't exclude any other contracting government that would also wish to join and work with Australia on this. So welcome at 6 p.m. in this room. The second thing we owe from the morning part is a report on credentials. And here I would kindly ask the technicians to pass the floor to New Zealand for this matter. I know it will be a bit challenging, but okay, Morocco, that's easier. Then pass the floor to Morocco, please. Just wait, Morocco, everything will go automatically. You don't need to press anything. Just when it gets red, you start speaking. Morocco, please. Technicians.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Credentials Committee had 4 sessions meetings. The last one had met this morning. We checked all the credentials they received until today, and we made sure all of them are in conformity with the rules and procedures of the Commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Morocco, and I hereby thank the Credentials Committee for their very good work. Thank you. Now I open the agenda item 7.1, and we will continue with our discussions. We will continue with delegations with countries that were on the list already before. So first is UK, followed by Chile.
Thank you, Chair. The United Kingdom would like to thank Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay for proposing this schedule amendment and highlighting the opportunity to reduce the impact of human activities on cetaceans in the South Atlantic. We therefore align with the comments made in the previous session by the EU and its member states and offer our support to this well-presented and scientifically sound proposal, and would encourage all contracting governments to enable this proposal to be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you. Chile, followed by New Zealand.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. La delegación de Chile reitera su apoyo irrestricto a la proposición de Brasil, Argentina y Uruguay para la creación de un santuario de ballenas en el Atlántico Sur. Este instrumento de conservación ha demostrado de manera inobjetable su utilidad y conveniencia para la protección y conservación de los cetáceos, que es uno de los objetivos fundamentales de la Comisión Ballenera Internacional. Los argumentos a favor explicados con lenguaje claro y transparente por los países proponentes son plena garantía para brindar nuestro apoyo masivo y no vemos realmente ninguna objeción de fondo para su creación. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you. New Zealand, followed by Australia.
Thank you, Chair. New Zealand is a long-standing supporter of the proposal for a South Atlantic whale sanctuary. We believe that sanctuaries have both symbolic and practical aspects to protect cetacean populations. I agree with the member from Costa Rica this morning that the world's eyes are on us. We believe we cannot ignore the wider context of how our actions are perceived in the global community, which is focused on addressing climate change and protecting the environment. New Zealand commends Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay for again bringing this comprehensive proposal for a South Atlantic whale sanctuary to the Commission. We commend their efforts to build consensus for the important proposal, and we would like to place on record our support for the creation of the South Atlantic whale sanctuary proposal at this IWC68. Thank you.
Thank you. Australia, followed by Dominican Republic.
Thank you, Chair. And Australia adds its thanks to Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay for bringing this proposal back to the Commission. The proposal is well known. We've seen it before, and Australia will continue at this meeting, as we have in the past, to support the proposal. We know that sanctuaries offer an effective framework to encourage collaborative international research programs, and the Southern Ocean Research Partnership is an excellent example of how sanctuaries and research go hand in hand. My final comment is to observe that both the Indian Ocean Sanctuary and the Southern Ocean Sanctuary demonstrate how IWC whale sanctuaries coexist with fishery management across their areas. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Dominican Republic, followed by Mexico.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. La República Dominicana ha establecido su gran santuario de mamíferos marinos en 1986. También surgió la hermandad con el santuario de Stillwagon, principalmente para conservación de las ballenas jorobadas que migran del Atlántico Norte hacia las aguas territoriales de la República Dominicana y permanecen durante unos 3 meses en actividades de reproducción. Durante los años, en las localidades costeras del país fueron desarrolladas las actividades de observación de ballenas dentro de las áreas de santuario. El uso de este recurso marino vivo ha proporcionado mucha estabilidad económica para las poblaciones costeras directamente como a la oferta turística nacional, convirtiendo la observación de ballenas en un producto de oferta turística. República Dominicana, en su política nacional ambiental, apoya la creación de áreas de protección de la vida marina, en especial los mamíferos marinos, entre ellos también los delfines y ballenas, y por ende expresa su pleno apoyo a los 3 países en la propuesta del santuario para el Atlántico Sur. Gracias.
Thank you. Mexico, followed by the US.
Gracias, señor presidente. Primero que nada, agradecemos a Argentina, Brasil y Uruguay y los felicitamos por su gran trabajo y esta propuesta. Sabemos que ha habido diferentes revisiones en la comisión para examinar la propuesta de este santuario y su plan de gestión. Y en todas ellas hemos elogiado a los proponentes por sus esfuerzos para elaborar una propuesta exhaustiva y aportar las sugerencias que hizo la comisión para articular mejor las medidas de evaluación y rendimiento del santuario. y todos hemos estado de acuerdo que la información proporcionada en la propuesta es exhaustiva y que se trataba además, y es importante señalarlo, de la primera propuesta de santuario que proporcionaba un plan de gestión. La propuesta, hay que señalarlo, es coherente con las medidas existentes para proteger a las ballenas de las amenazas antropogénicas, otros factores ambientales, y contribuye positivamente a una serie de compromisos internacionales existentes sobre la diversidad y el cambio climático, y que es además coherente con el enfoque precautorio. Los proponentes explicaron claramente que no va a haber un impacto a otras actividades económicas, y también cabe señalar que hay una serie de datos que nos faltan, pero sabemos que existen del enredamiento de ballenas en este santuario, que esta medida podría ayudar a evaluar y resolver. Entonces, México apoya de todo corazón esta propuesta. Gracias.
Thank you. United States, followed by Korea.
Thank you, Chair. The United States would like to join others in thanking the proponents for bringing forward this proposal again, and continues to support the establishment of a South Atlantic whale sanctuary. In our view, the sanctuary will provide range states with important new opportunities to advance whale conservation, as well as education and outreach. In addition, the sanctuary will provide a means for the international cooperation necessary for effective scientific research, conservation, and management of cetaceans. Thank you.
Thank you. Korea, followed by St. Lucia.
Thank you, Chair. Republic of Korea also would like to appreciate Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay for this proposal. Korea believes that establishing South Atlantic whale sanctuary will not only contribute to cetacean conservation, but also restoring marine ecosystem as well. Korea knows the rationale and background of this proposal, which we would like to fully support. To restore and conserve cetaceans, Korea would like to underscore the importance of collective and cooperative efforts by our contracting governments under the IWC, which is the only body that focusing on cetacean conservation issues. In this regard, Korea firmly believes that this proposal will make IWC move much forward to the conservation of cetaceans. When this amendment adopted, it is expected that exchange in good practices and information regarding South Atlantic region will be implemented. Korea will actively take part in this kind of discussion and stay dedicated to such endeavor. The government of Korea once again would like to express our appreciation to the proponents for the continuous efforts on this proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. St. Lucia, followed by Ecuador.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair, there has been a moratorium in place for a very long time, and there has been no whaling, particularly in this area. So I ask the question, why is there need for a sanctuary? Chair, we look at this proposal after many years of submission without any change. And we have concrete evidence from the scientific committee of this organization that whales have grown in number. Many, many more are now available. It appears, Chair, that we appear to be putting economics ahead of science. And will the IWC encourage the creation of new sanctuaries to lock up the world's oceans? At a time when food security is a critical issue for countries, and in particular coastal states, another sanctuary would only make poor developing states and people poorer and less healthy. Several countries, Mr. Chair, have paid their dues to be here, but they couldn't afford to get here, not just because of money, but they couldn't get a visa to come.
So to create another sanctuary would be tantamount to taking advantage of a situation which is not so good for our organization. We are looking at a level playing field. We are looking at giving every member country the opportunity to take part in the decision-making at this organization. And we are considered by the world as the most important body to look after the conservation and management of whales. So, Chair, I am looking for credibility in our organization, and I trust that we can do what is right and defer this request for a sanctuary.
Thank you. Ecuador, followed by Panama.
Gracias, señor presidente. Quisiéramos saludar y felicitar a Brasil, Argentina y Uruguay por la propuesta de santuario de ballenas, contribuyendo así a los esfuerzos de conservación de los cetáceos a nivel mundial. Ecuador reitera el apoyo a la propuesta. Gracias.
Thank you. Panama, followed by Iceland.
Gracias, señor presidente. Por ser la primera vez que Panamá toma la palabra, queremos agradecer al gobierno de Eslovenia por la hospitalidad de albergar esta reunión y por la recepción tan bonita que nos dieron en el día de anoche. Nosotros queremos felicitar a Brasil, Argentina y Uruguay por la propuesta que está basada en su principio de base precautoria y garantiza lo que es la conservación y el uso sostenible de los valores ecosistémicos de los cetáceos. Así que Panamá apoya esta propuesta. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Iceland.
Thank you, Chair. Similar proposals on the South Atlantic Whale Sanctuary have been put forth in the past without passing. Iceland supports that the nation should be able to determine the management activities in the areas under their jurisdiction. Iceland further recognizes the need for sustainable management of marine resources. Iceland is also sympathetic to the notion of states in a particular region being able to have the main voice regarding the management in that region. However, Iceland reiterates the legal position as stated before that the proposal does not meet the requirements set out in the convention regarding amendments to the schedule. Iceland is fully committed to the rule of international law and expect other members countries to adhere to the requirements of the convention. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. With this, the list on contracting governments is closed, and I would pass. Okay, I see Benin, and then I would close the list. So Benin, please, the floor is yours.
Oui, à la suite, merci Monsieur le Président. À la suite de mes prédécesseurs qui sont contre cette résolution, je voudrais dire que nous devons militer pour que le débat soit équitable, afin que les pays côtiers qui sont réellement concernés soient autour de la table pour que le débat soit bien mené. Et c'est pour cela que je voudrais réitérer le fait que le Bénin va contre cette proposition et de sanctuaire pour le moment. Nous avons déjà le moratoire. On pourrait continuer à s'en contenter le temps de pouvoir faire participer nos États au débat. Donc, le Bénin n'est pas pour cette proposition. Merci.
Thank you. I would pass the floor to one of the proponents. I presume, according to what I have on my list, is Argentina, to reply, if you wish to do so, to certain of the questions that were posed by some contracting governments. Argentina, please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Since I'm going to reply to interventions that have been mostly expressed in English, I would continue in English. Excuse myself with the other Spanish-speaking countries. We're really grateful for the comments made regarding this initiative, either in favor or against. I mean, all comments made contribute to enrich our debate here. Regarding WTO issues, we fail to see, honestly, any relationship between whale watching and WTO competencies. There is no appropriation of resources in whale watching, no international trade, no relevant transboundary trade on services. Therefore, I mean, WTO, in our view, has nothing to say about that. I mean, it would be more competent, the WHO, to control our COVID tests in the door of this room than the WTO with whale watching. We engage in an effort to look for a relationship between SOS and WTO, but failed to find any. Landscape watching is not essentially different from whale watching, and we cannot imagine such activity as falling within the scope of WTO. Concerning budget, we would like to specify that the impact foreseen for the next 2 years is only £200 in case this initiative gets approved. That's the only financial impact it might have. Regarding the impact on fisheries, I repeat, there is none. Non-rule applicable to fishing activities in the South Atlantic will be affected by the sanctuary if approved. Our colleagues of New Zealand have been very clear in the way they express this aspect. We also respectfully disagree with the view qualifying this initiative as redundant, because it would overlap with the moratorium in force. The moratorium coexists with other sanctuaries that have been adopted in accordance with the convention. Therefore, I mean, if there is legal consistency with the other sanctuaries, we fail to see any inconsistency with this particular sanctuary. But again, we are very grateful to all opinions expressed. We appreciate them. We will continue to study them. And thanks again to you, Chair.
Thank you, Brazil.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank all the countries that have expressed their support to this initiative. We are proud to persist in proposing the South Atlantic Sanctuary, and we will continue to do so if it's not approved at this time again. We believe that this is the right thing to do, and we would urge all countries to engage immediately, as soon as possible, in cooperation, independently of the result of the proposal, in cooperation in the South Atlantic, in order to integrate national research, to develop management efforts and conservation strategies in the area in favor of preservation of marine life. We also we respect those countries that have a position against the sanctuary, but we would like to say that it's for some countries that apparently are using the opportunity to play politics in this organization, that this is not the time to do that. The world expects from us a firm position towards the environment and marine life in general. And it's not only the wrong thing to do, but it's also a dangerous game. And I would say that the world is in a hurry of firm action regarding the environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Uruguay.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Yo en esta reunión de a ratos me siento como si estuviéramos en una reunión de autos clásicos y que alguno de los socios de la reunión dijera, pero no queremos autos viejos. La esencia de esta comisión es trabajar a nivel internacional en la protección de la ballena.
Bien dijo el delegado de Islandia que la tendencia de los países es a reservar sus temas en las áreas de jurisdicción de los mares. En las conferencias de derecho del mar hemos tenido siempre esta discusión y lo hemos resuelto con las áreas exclusivas, inclusive con la plataforma continental. Y la tendencia de los países ha sido siempre tratar de avanzar sobre el mar. Este es un caso diferente. Es un grupo de países que ofrece para la comunidad una enorme superficie para que sea tratada y investigada científicamente todos juntos. Es la esencia misma esta de la comisión y esto lo tenemos que festejar. Por eso el Uruguay agradece al sinnúmero de países que apoyan esta iniciativa y le pide a los demás que por lo menos se abstengan. Imagínense ustedes si mañana el delegado de Noruega o Antigua y Barbuda y otros más, de Benín, por ejemplo, pudiera volver a su capital después de esta excelente reunión que hemos tenido acá en Eslovenia, excelentemente presidida por usted y apoyada por una excelente secretaría, y pudiéramos anunciarle al mundo que hemos decretado una zona de proporciones considerables como un santuario donde lo que nos preocupa es la investigación científica. Es lo que nosotros hemos dicho en nuestra primera intervención. La ballena mejora los ecosistemas, genera un ambiente más propicio. Y en eso me quiero referir también a lo que llamamos los pequeños estados insulares, que en todos los ámbitos internacionales apoyamos en su llamado a la protección del ambiente, al combate del cambio climático y todos los asuntos que verdaderamente ponen en riesgo la subsistencia de esos estados. Son islas que según los cálculos internacionales inclusive pueden llegar a desaparecer. Entonces no entendemos cuando un grupo de países con el apoyo de una gran parte de la comunidad internacional se aviene a hacer un trabajo conjunto, que haya resistencia en este tema. Capaz hay una mala interpretación, entonces a eso sí le pedimos que se abstengan en todo caso, pero que dejen que una vez que terminemos esta reunión, reitero, podamos volver a nuestras capitales y ponerle un sello de excelencia a esta comisión diciendo estamos progresando, tenemos nuevas zonas, tenemos las protecciones y estamos abocados a un desarrollo científico. Imagínese usted en las organizaciones no gubernamentales, los fondos de ayuda, la propia contribución de los países, qué elemento motivador puede ser una noticia de este tipo. Le agradezco mucho, presidente.
Thank you. I have Guinea on my list from contacting governments. Guinea, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La création des sanctuaires peut être une bonne chose. Mais comme vous le savez, les pays en voie de développement ont besoin de la sécurité alimentaire pour nourrir nos populations. Trop de sanctuaires, ça amène la malnutrition. Donc, mon pays est contre cette proposition. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. I have Liberia on the list. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And since I'm first time taking the floor, Liberia would like to congratulate the government of Slovenia for the hospitality and the secretary for the organization of this meeting. I also like to congratulate the proponents of this proposal. But at this junction, Liberia would like to align with countries. And I believe that the proposal need further discussion. And I taking cue from the fact that we already have a system in place. There's a need that we continue to discuss this further outside of this meeting. And so for that reason, Liberia believe that we cannot support the proposal at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you. I have other organizations now on the list, but I'll first check if there are non-member governments who would like to take the floor. No? IGOs that would like to take the floor? No? Then I pass to NGOs. I have two of them. I kindly ask you to keep the time limit and present yourself as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the Brazilian Humpback Whale Institute, I'll be brief. And of course, we're in full support of this proposal, but I'll just like to highlight a couple of important things regarding the proposal and some questions that were raised here today. First and foremost, the question of the interest of coastal communities of developing countries which border the proposed sanctuary. Absolutely not a single one of these communities uses whales or dolphins lethally. There's no direct kill of any species of whale or dolphin in the South Atlantic Sanctuary proposed area. Much to the contrary, many of these communities, comprising thousands of people in need of jobs and revenue, do use these whales non-lethally through whale watching. And therefore, the sanctuary would reinforce the generation of jobs and income in all these developing countries, which can benefit from the recovery of whale populations. Further, when we consider the issue of fisheries, each and every scientific paper published about the importance of whales in the global marine ecosystem show that the presence of more whales benefit fisheries by increasing marine productivity. And therefore, if there's any interaction with fisheries interests, it is to make sure that these fisheries can thrive in the presence of a healthy ocean because of the presence of these whales. We are grateful that some northern countries from the far north express an interest in the plight of small cetaceans in Latin America, especially as these countries have never, to our understanding, contributed to the CMPs that are now protecting or trying to protect Franciscana and other such species. And we would welcome also these countries who pontificate about the importance of fighting climate change to recognize the importance of whale populations to climate change too, and help us in establishing the sanctuary instead of criticizing without contributing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have an IGO, so I will ask technicians to put first NAMCO. Please take the floor. NAMCO, you can speak.
Yeah. I'm not NAMCO. Sorry, misunderstanding. I'm from Opus Oceani Foundation. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to speak. As it's our first time to speak, we'd like to thank you and the Secretariat, and especially the Government of Slovenia, for their work to make this important event such a success. Opus Oceani Foundation's purpose is to make sure that the oceans are subject to good global governance. When assessing any proposal, we ask whether it will make a positive contribution to the knowledge and rules-based regulatory system. To gain our support, a proposal must A, solve a problem that's not being addressed by existing regulations, B, deliver tangible and measurable results. The goals set out in Doc IWC68 Rev.1 have merit. But the question is, Do we need this sanctuary to achieve them? Had the sanctuary been established when first mooted, it is doubtful that it could have improved upon the outcome since then, because over the past quarter of a century, whale stocks have increased substantially. Second, there is nothing currently standing in the way of the long-term promotion of the conservation of large whales south of the equator. The IWC and its contracting countries are already empowered to implement and coordinate non-lethal and non-extractive research in the region. Fourth, whale watching and educational activities can be conducted anywhere a responsible operator desires, so long as it is within the law. It is, Mr. Chair, already possible to integrate national research, management efforts and conservation strategies in a cooperative framework to maximize the effectiveness of management actions. Last, there's nothing currently preventing the development of localized measures to protect whale stocks, including protecting whales from collisions with commercial shipping in cooperation with the IMO, or preventing entanglement with fishing gear in liaison with RFMOs. Thank you.
Thank you. Please pass the floor to the next NGO. Please present yourself.
Mi nombre es Roxana Steinberg, del Instituto de Conservación de Ballenas. Gracias, señor presidente. Realizo esta presentación en nombre del ICB, Centro de Conservación Cetácea, con la adhesión de un extenso grupo de organizaciones no gubernamentales, cuya nómina adjuntaré a la Secretaría con el texto. Adherimos absolutamente con todo lo expresado por los países proponentes, y como organizaciones que representamos a la ciudadanía, deseamos enfatizar que, desde su primera presentación, hace más de 20 años, la propuesta para la creación del Santuario de Ballenas del Atlántico Sur ha representado los intereses de los países del hemisferio sur a fin de proteger a las especies de cetáceos que habitan esas aguas de crecientes presiones y amenazas. En particular, y gracias al desarrollo de la investigación científica no letal, la propuesta aumenta su relevancia dado el papel fundamental que estas especies de mamíferos marinos tienen en el funcionamiento del ecosistema marino. El compromiso y la convicción de los países proponentes es lo que una vez más trae aquí esta importante propuesta, la cual cuenta asimismo con el apoyo de millones de ciudadanos de Argentina, Brasil, Uruguay y de toda la región latinoamericana. Esta propuesta forma parte además del proceso evolutivo que ha tenido la Convención desde la adopción de la moratoria, y está en línea con el uso sostenible no letal y no extractivo, dado los cetáceos en la cuenca del Atlántico Sur. El santuario alentará también a promover la investigación científica en la región a través de la cooperación internacional y con la activa participación de la CBI, permitiendo impulsar la conservación a largo plazo de más de 50 especies de cetáceos, con énfasis en zonas claves de reproducción y alimentación. Asegurar la sostenibilidad a largo plazo de su uso sostenible no letal y no extractivo de los cetáceos para actividades productivas y de investigación científica. Monitorear la recuperación a largo plazo de poblaciones y especies afectadas previamente por la caza comercial, identificar rutas migratorias y patrones de movimiento, e identificar las amenazas que enfrentan los cetáceos en el área y desarrollar medidas de mitigación. Adicionalmente, deseamos destacar que el Comité Científico, en el reporte de la reunión 66B, concluyó que la revisión científica acerca de esta propuesta ya fue realizada y no es necesaria una nueva revisión de sus aspectos científicos. Finalmente, la propuesta está en línea con la Declaración de Florianópolis, adoptada por la CBI en 2018, creando medidas para facilitar la recuperación de especies con el objetivo que puedan cumplir su papel en el funcionamiento del ecosistema. Por estas razones, señor presidente, hacemos un llamado a todos los delegados aquí presentes para que den su voto a favor del Santuario del Atlántico Sur. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Please, microphone to another NGO.
Thank you, Chair. IWMC. I would like, first of all, to entirely subscribe with the words expressed by the observer from Opus Oceani, and simply adding up that, yes, we all agree that the coastal communities will benefit from the recovery of the whales, as long, of course, as they can use it properly and sustainably. And I will simply add it up close by saying that there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever which has been produced indicating that the sanctuary can help the recovery of the whale species. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have come to an end of this discussion here. There was a support expressed for this proposal, and there were concerns expressed for this proposal. We've heard objections. There were also wishes for further deliberations and for further clarification. Therefore, I would check with project proponents if we can, at the moment, adjourn this agenda item. And if you're willing to engage with the countries that have different views in some deliberations in the next day or two, and then again open this agenda item on Thursday. I see nodding, so thank you. And let us deal with this proposal in this way. So this agenda item 7.1 is adjourned. And now we come to the agenda item 8, which is proposed resolutions. And first, I would say that we have here 3 resolutions, which we will examine in turn how they were proposed. I mean, according to the time they were proposed. All 3 proposals were made available 60 days before the plenary, in line with the rules of procedure, in all three languages, and they were made available also on the webpage of this meeting. I will now turn to the agenda item 8.1, which is resolution on marine plastic pollution. This proposal was submitted by the EU member states to the International Convention on Regulation of the Whaling, and addresses marine pollution. EU had an opportunity to examine the draft resolution that was put on the web before that meeting. In the meantime, the proponents have worked on some revisions, and these revisions are also available on the webpage. But I would open now the floor on the resolution as general, and then after receiving the comments, we can probably see how to engage with the revised text. I will pass the floor to the proponents first. Czech Republic, please take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just to check that the chair of the FNA committee is not going to provide any.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Czech Republic, and apologies. Please, USA, as chair of the FNA, you will inform us about potential financial implications of this resolution.
Sure, I'm happy to go first from an FNA perspective, as the proponents then may want to respond after that. So noting my earlier intervention on the draft cost estimates that the Secretariat had worked on, as well as the revisions and discussions that happened both in budgetary subcommittee, as well as with the proponents in the Finance and Administration Committee. As you can see in our report, there was some questions about costs related to the Scientific Committee and the Secretariat associated with this proposed resolution. The proponents noted that the intent was not to add additional costs. For example, the direction to the Secretariat regarding collaboration and cooperation with other international organizations could be undertaken in the work already being done by the Secretariat or invited IWC experts that attend those meetings. And regarding the Scientific Committee, I believe the intention of some of the current revisions to the revised proposal that's now on the website address some of those questions. And the proponents further stated in F&A that they noted either voluntary funding or work already going on in conjunction with other priorities directed by the Commission could cover the rest of the costs. And that concludes my report, but there may be further updates from the proponent.
Thank you. And now I pass the floor to the proponents. Czech Republic, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The Czech Republic, speaking on behalf of the EU member states party to the ICRW, would like to introduce the proposed resolution on marine plastic pollution, which was submitted for consideration at this meeting. In recent years, the issue of marine plastic pollution has accelerated up the social, political, and conservation agendas. Marine plastic pollution is now recognized as a major global threat to ocean and ecosystem health, biodiversity, livelihoods, and wild animal conservation and welfare. Plastic pollution drives biodiversity loss, and plastics contribute to climate change at each stage of its life cycle. Several international agreements, regional seas conventions, and intergovernmental organizations address this issue. One of the most important and visible steps addressing this major threat was the adopting of the UNEA Resolution 5/14 and plastic pollution towards an international legal binding instrument. That's called the resolution in 2022, so this year, which agreed to convene an intergovernmental negotiation committee, INSC, to develop an international legally binding instrument on plastic pollution. The EU and its member states party to the ICRW see an opportunity for the IWC to contribute to these efforts by taking a lead in addressing the negative impacts on marine plastic pollution on cetaceans as a supportive but distinctive actions to the UNEA resolution. The IWC has a unique role in the field of data collection, impact and risk assessment, and international cooperation. With this regard, the EU and its member states party to the ICRW proposed this resolution inviting the IWC to support a comprehensive work program within the Secretariat, the Scientific and Conservation Committees, which identifies a clear and appropriately supported role for the IWC. If you allow me, I would like to shortly introduce the main actions proposed in the resolution. So, directing the IWC Secretariat to explore options for the IWC to engage in the INC process as a stakeholder, directing the IWC Secretariat to explore ways in increased collaboration and cooperation with relevant regional and international organizations to share information that contribute to prevent or mitigate marine plastic pollution impact on cetaceans and to avoid unnecessary duplication of work and regulation, requesting the Scientific Committee to consider contributing to an understanding of the impact of marine plastic pollution on cetaceans, including through data collection and identification of global hotspots of cetacean exposure to plastic debris. Encouraging the Conservation Committee, the Scientific Committee, and the Whale Killing Methods and Welfare Issue Working Group to consider engaging in pilot projects of other organizations or entities on gear marking of fish gear or fish gear that is known to lead to cetacean entanglement. Recommending contracting governments to report relevant information on marine plastic pollution and plastic ingestion by cetaceans in voluntary scientific progress is another proposed activity. And finally, The last recommended action is to recommending the IWC Secretariat to add marine debris mapping to its engagement with the important marine mammals process. I would like to stress how that the EU and its member states party to the ICRW are fully aware of the fact that any new requests for the IWC Secretariat or scientific and other committees and subcommittees are interlinked with the IWC budget to be adopted for the next and following biennium. Therefore, the resolution is focused on interlink with ongoing processes as much as possible. Any additional request to the scientific committee or the Secretariat should be considered in the light of the current savings and in the context of other priorities as directed by the Commission. I would like to thank the Chair of the FN Committee for providing the comprehensive overview of the estimated costs related to the implementation of this resolution. Also, would like to thank the Secretariat for all work done on this. It's really appreciated. This is now very well reflecting the intention of the activities proposed. Anyway, we will be happy to provide more explanation to the contracting government if requested. Just to conclude, Mr. Chair, the EU and its member states hope this resolution can be adopted by consensus. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Czech Republic. Now I open the floor for interventions by contracting governments. US, followed by Norway.
Thank you, Chair. The United States thanks the Czech Republic and the EU member states for their initiative on this proposed resolution on marine plastic pollution. We are pleased to join the proposal as a co-sponsor now. And as we greatly appreciate the efforts of the delegates to incorporate some of our suggestions into the new revision recently posted on the website. We recognize the importance of coordinated international efforts to reduce and address the harmful effects of plastic pollution on marine ecosystem health, and on particularly cetaceans. More so, we find this proposal to be timely, as the impacts of plastic pollution, including on cetaceans and other marine resources, have been of growing concern and led to a recent United Nations Environment Assembly resolution that is launching negotiations for a new international legally binding instrument on plastic pollution. So we hope that the Commission can adopt this resolution by consensus and thereby support coordinated work and contributions by the IWC to understanding and addressing the risks and impacts to cetaceans from plastic pollution. Thank you.
Thank you. Norway, with your permission, I would pass first the floor to the UK, which is the second co-sponsor now.
Thank you, Chair. The United Kingdom would like to thank the EU member states for tabling this important and timely resolution. As the US have said, this proposal highlights the threat of marine plastic pollution to cetaceans and is a really great opportunity for the IWC to engage with the International Negotiating Committee, which, following the historic agreement at UNEA, has been tasked with developing an international instrument on plastic pollution. This resolution aligns with the UK's commitment to address the life cycle of plastic pollution and allows the IWC to engage in this process in a meaningful way for the benefit of cetaceans. So we would therefore like to express our full support for this resolution and are very pleased to join the US in co-sponsoring this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. So Norway, followed by India.
Thank you, Chair. It's not possible to be in favor of marine plastic pollution. We can certainly agree to that. And therefore, Norway strongly supports international collaboration to prevent marine plastic pollution, and Norway is actively participating in efforts to find international binding agreements to reduce marine plastic pollution. Although marine plastic pollution can be a threat to cetaceans, IWC has no legal authority to regulate pollution, and this resolution should not cause a shift away from IWC's main objective, that is to provide for the proper conservation of whale stocks and thus make possible the orderly development of the whaling industry. And that is actually what might happen, Mr. Chair. to put another burden on the scientific committee when this committee is already stretched is not something that achieves applause from us. And as IWC at the current moment finds itself in a financial disarray, to spend 127,846 British pounds as what must be considered as a startup cost to cope with marine pollution does not seem as a very good idea. And there are already several international organizations involved in this kind of work. We will continue to monitor the discussion and decide upon how we will, well, at the end, be positive to this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. India followed by New Zealand.
Thank you, Chair. India is committed to take action for mitigations of pollutions caused by plastic pollutions. In the 4th United Nations Environmental Assembly held in 2019, India has piloted a resolutions on the addressing single-use plastic product pollutions, recognizing the urgent need for the global community to focus on these very important issues. The adoption of these resolutions at UNIA 4 was a significant step. The Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India has notified the Plastic Waste Management Amendment Rules 2022, which prohibits identified single-use plastic items which have low utility and higher littering potentials. Other than this, in our country, plastic pollution is being fought at various levels by the state governments, NGOs, and individuals. In India, the per capita annual usage of plastic is 11 kg in comparison to the world average 28 kg per annum. In 2019-20, out of 3.4 million tons of plastic waste generated in India, and 60% of the same was recycled, against the world average of 20%. So the solid waste management capacity in India has increased from 18% in 2014 to 70% in 2021. The Bureau of Indian Standards classified microbeads used in cosmetics as unsafe for use in cosmetic products and banned the microbeads in cosmetics, and this is implemented in 2020, along with the banning of importing plastic waste. Identifying the risk of ghost nets, India has already a program in place to address the problem of ghost nets, though incentive-based mechanism to reduce the impact while securing the livelihood of the stakeholders. India has also started a citizen-led lifestyle for environment, LIFE, campaign by following 3R approach: reduce, reuse, and recycle. This is bringing huge awareness in sustainable consumptions in environment-friendly lifestyle in India. Is committed to the fight against plastic pollutions. We support these resolutions with modifications, considering the present scenario of plastic waste disposal. Thank you.
Thank you. New Zealand followed by Korea. Please pass the mic to New Zealand.
Thank you, Chair. And we echo other speakers in thanking the EU for calling attention to this serious issue of marine plastic pollution. We certainly agree the rapidly increasing levels of plastic pollution, including microplastics, present a serious transboundary environmental problem and the need for collective international action. And New Zealand will be part of that international action. At an IWC level, New Zealand supports efforts by the IWC to contribute to that international work because of the impact on cetacean populations. We believe that the IWC cannot stand aside from this issue. And for that reason, New Zealand supports this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Korea followed by Argentina.
Thank you, Chair. As mentioned by many contracting governments, Korea would also like to highlight the agreement made in UNEA this year. In this regard, Korea would like to appreciate Czech Republic on behalf of EU member states for submitting this very timely and significant resolution. In light of conserving cetaceans, addressing marine plastic issues is vital and should be dealt with high priority as it causes cetacean entanglement, ghost fishing, and further depleting marine ecosystem. The government of Republic of Korea also takes measures to tackle marine plastic issue under the vision of achieving zero marine plastic by 2050. Korea firmly believes that this proposal will contribute to mitigate marine plastic and thus conserve and restore cetaceans. We therefore fully support this proposal and hope this proposal be adopted by consensus. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Korea. Argentina, followed by Mexico.
Muchas gracias. La Argentina desea agradecer a los miembros de la Unión Europea por la preparación y presentación de este proyecto de resolución. Nuestro país reconoce la extrema gravedad del problema generado por la acumulación de desechos plásticos que llegan a los océanos y la amenaza que ello representa para la salud de los ecosistemas marinos. En línea con lo expresado por otras delegaciones, creemos que la CBI debe contribuir en esta materia. Por ello expresamos nuestro apoyo al proyecto de resolución sobre contaminación marina por plásticos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Mexico, followed by Australia.
Gracias, señor presidente. Igual que otros países, agradecemos a la Unión Europea haber traído a la mesa esta importante resolución. Hay que señalar que la Comisión ya está trabajando con el Global Partnership on Marine Litter y que la resolución está en línea con los trabajos que ya estamos llevando a cabo en este tema, tanto en el Comité Científico como en el Comité de Conservación. En este caso, efectivamente, hay otros organismos que tratan con este tema, pero específicamente ninguno lo trata con cetáceos. Reconociendo la extrema gravedad del problema generada por la acumulación de desechos plásticos de todos tamaños que llegan al mar, lo que ocasiona daños a lo largo también de la trama trófica marina, nuestro país se ha adherido también a diferentes declaraciones, instrumentos internacionales para combatir la contaminación por plásticos, lo que refleja la voluntad de nuestro país para proteger los ecosistemas marinos y por ello y en línea con nuestra política apoyamos de todo corazón este proyecto de resolución en los términos en los que esté escrito. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Australia, followed by Brazil.
Thank you, Chair. Australia joins others in thanking the Czech Republic and EU member states for this resolution, which Australia is pleased to support. Addressing plastic pollution at home and abroad is a priority for the Australian government. We welcome initiatives which assist in consolidating and coordinating global action on marine plastic pollution. The IWC has a particular role to play in supporting global action through its ability to inform relevant organisations on the impact of plastics on cetacean populations. Australia also supports efforts to ensure strong collaboration and cooperation with other regional and international organisations on plastic pollution, and in particular, as noted by the Czech Republic, the importance of collaborating with the INC Secretariat regarding the new global treaty on plastic pollution. We hope to see this globally important resolution accepted by consensus. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I have Brazil, followed by Panama.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to express our full support to the resolution. We also want to thank the Czech Republic and the European Union for proposing it. And we have nothing to add because we join all the previous speakers for the reasons that have been already exposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Panama, followed by Benin.
Gracias, señor presidente. Agradecemos a la República Checa por presentar este proyecto de contaminación marina por plásticos y reconocemos el efecto nocivo y potencial de riesgo que representa por el problema generado por la acumulación de desechos de plásticos y microplásticos y basura marina, que llegan a los mares ocasionando daños a lo largo de la salud de la cadena trófica marina, degradación del hábitat, enfermedades emergentes por contaminación química para los cetáceos y siendo también un potencial de riesgo para la zoonosis. En este sentido, destacamos las tareas que han realizado los comités, tanto científicos como de conservación, en esta comisión, y la comisión debería ir en esta línea comprometidos con la reducción y la mitigación de la contaminación marina. Por lo tanto, expresamos nuestro apoyo.
Thank you. Benin followed by Liberia.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Le Bénin, à la suite de ses prédécesseurs, mesure la gravité et l'importance des dégâts que causent les déchets plastiques, au-delà même des déchets plastiques dans l'environnement marin. Le Bénin a toujours été dans le processus et s'associe au processus qui vise à lutter contre ces genres de pollution et autres. Donc, le Bénin voudrait joindre sa voix à ses prédécesseurs pour féliciter les initiateurs de cette résolution et soutenir le projet. Merci.
Thank you. Liberia followed by Morocco.
Thank you, Chair. Liberia would like to congratulate Czech Republic and the EU member countries and other proponents of this resolution. We believe that this resolution is key in preserving our marine environment, and I urge Liberia for the support this draft resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Morocco followed by Chile.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to thank the proponents of this resolution. Morocco is fully aware of the adverse effects of plastic marine pollution and is actively acting with an international forum dedicated to this issue. So Morocco supports this resolution, but would only make sure it would not incur additional burden on the Commission finance in a time of unbalanced budget, and also make sure that there will be no redundant actions, as this issue is today tackled by a wide range of international and regional instruments. Thank you.
Thank you. Chile.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Chile también felicita a la Unión Europea por la presentación de este proyecto de resolución y desde luego, como país oceánico, apoyamos plenamente que esta resolución sea aprobada. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Guinea, the Republic of Guinea.
Ouais. Merci, Monsieur le Président. La République de Guinée, dans sa politique de soutenir la production halieutique, a déjà mis une politique en place pour interdire les monofilaments qui sont constitués par des plastiques. Donc, nous soutenons fermement, cette résolution qui va dans le cadre de la préservation du milieu marin. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Mauritania.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Puisque c'est la première fois que je prends la parole, je voudrais vous féliciter d'abord et aussi vous remercier et remercier les autorités locales pour l'accueil chaleureux. Notre pays est conscient du danger que cause la pollution plastique et il a même introduit une loi qui interdit toute utilisation des plastiques dans le pays. Et nous félicitons aussi les auteurs de cette résolution et nous soutenons pleinement cette résolution. Merci.
Thank you. I have no contracting governments on the list, but I have scientific committee, which probably wants to add to clarity. So please, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marine plastic pollution is certainly a problem for ocean life, including for cetaceans. Plastic items, microplastics, and potentially nanoplastics are a concern. The scientific committee thanks the proponents of this resolution and greatly appreciates the substantial revisions. The revised resolution should allow the scientific committee continue to pursue discussions about plastic pollution within our existing work stream, noting that a change in meeting frequency may slow our ability to respond. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no contracting governments anymore, so a question for the intervention of non-member governments. I don't see IGOs. I also don't see any, and I have NGOs now. So first, NGO which sits behind the NAMCO mic. Please present yourself. Okay. Apologies. There was a microphone given to the other organization. Please, the other organization who has already the open mic, start, and then we'll come to. Please
Okay.
start.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of the Environmental Investigation Agency and 18 other NGO observers to this meeting. A full list will be provided to the Secretariat for inclusion in the report of the meeting. Global production of plastics has increased from 2 million tons in 1950 to 460 million tons in 2021. This is an increase of 22,900%. To date, we've produced about 10 billion tons of plastics, half of which is now in landfill or in the open environment, including our marine environment. Around 68% of cetacean species are known to be affected by plastic pollution. These impacts are not limited to the often lethal consequences of ingestion and entanglement. Sublethal impacts are increasingly recognized, causing malnutrition, disease, reduced reproduction, growth, and longevity. Under the UN Environment Assembly, governments around the world are now negotiating an international legally binding instrument on plastic pollution. The mandate for UNEA calls for addressing plastic pollution in all environments through a comprehensive approach addressing the full plastics life cycle. Many of the governments represented here today have been instrumental in bringing these critical negotiations forward. The IWC recognized the potential significance of marine debris impacts on cetaceans almost 2 decades ago and has undertaken a number of actions to understand, manage, and mitigate the impact, increasingly focused on plastics. This body has a critical role to play in tackling the impacts of plastic on the world's whales, dolphins, and porpoises, and we strongly support the EU's draft resolution. Adoption of this resolution will encourage the development and support of a comprehensive work programme under the IWC, with clear and appropriately supported roles for the IWC Secretariat and the various committees and working groups. By setting out a clear plan of engagement in the broader global context on plastic pollution, including engaging as a stakeholder within discussions on a new global treaty, the IWC can significantly and efficiently contribute to the effectiveness of global efforts to reduce plastic pollution, including its impact on the conservation of cetaceans. Chair, we strongly support the adoption of this resolution by consensus. Thank you.
Thank you. Please give the mic to the other NGO. To NAMCO, what is on the list as NAMCO? Yes, please.
Hello, I'm speaking on behalf of Opus Oceani Foundation. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Opus Oceani congratulates the EU and the Czech Republic for making this proposal. Discovering the extent of marine plastic pollution is vital and pressing work, as is the need to investigate the harm marine plastics cause to cetaceans. But the challenge of making these assessments and then developing and implementing efficacious mitigation strategies will place a considerable burden on the already stretched resources of the IWC. Therefore, Opus Oceani Foundation would like to urge the EU and other contracting parties to finance this work generously. That said, we feel obliged to point out that it was single-use plastics, gloves, vials, needles, and face masks that helped keep us safe during the COVID pandemic. In other words, Opus Oceani Foundation believes that it is not single-use plastics or indeed any plastic material in general use within society that should concern us, so much as the poor governance that sometimes surrounds their disposal as a potentially hazardous waste material. And we point out that managing this challenge is particularly difficult in lesser developed countries that, while they might want to do better, face major economic and social challenges in combating this threat to marine environments. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we have heard all the interventions, and we have heard large support for this resolution, but we also heard some concerns and some unclarities, basically regarding the costs. I have also heard the wish for adoption by consensus, and therefore I would also propose to the proponents to work further on this resolution with the interested countries. I see nodding, and let me conclude that we will try to find a way where and how before this session ends. Maybe the proponents can then already announce some possibilities where and when they could meet with those interested countries. I see nodding, so let's conclude like this. So I adjourn this agenda item 8.1 and remind you that we have all the adjourned agenda items on our timeline planned for Thursday. Now let us turn to the resolution on food security, which was proposed by Antigua and Barbuda, Cambodia, Gambia, and Guinea. And in line with the previous practice, I would also, before moving to any discussion, I would ask proponents to present this resolution. I will, let's say it's up to you who will present it. I see Ghana. Ghana, please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Ghana would like to present this on behalf of the proposing countries and with the support of COMAFAT. We all note the UN agency FAO was established many years ago to fight hunger. We all know that IWC membership include over 88 member countries, and we note that the International Convention for Regulation of Whaling was signed in 1946, whereas the United Nations estimate that global population is expected to increase from 7.2 billion today. We also note that FAO has a vision, a world in which the responsible and sustainable use of fisheries and aquaculture resources makes an appreciable contribution to human well-being and food security. Recalling that the ICRW recognizes in its preamble that it is in the common interest to achieve the optimal level of whale stocks as rapidly as possible without widespread economic and nutritional distress. Recalling the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, which aim to have to halve between 1990 and 2015 the proportion of people who suffer from hunger. Recalling that UN Sustainable Development Goal 14 is to conserve and sustainably use the oceans and the seas and marine resources for sustainable development. Noting that the FAO has established 5 strategic objectives, namely to help eliminate hunger, food insecurity, and malnutrition, make agriculture, forestry, and fisheries more productive and sustainable, reduce rural poverty, enable inclusive and efficient agricultural food systems, increase the resilience of livelihoods to disasters. Now, these are the main actions that these resolutions wish to propose to the group. The group reaffirms Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, stating the right of all persons to an adequate standard of living, including food. Urges parties to take into consideration the need to ensure, among others, food security and nutrition, preservation of cultural identity, and security of livelihoods in any decision-making. Urges the parties to take into consideration the blue economy and blue growth perspectives in relation to food security for optimized benefits from the marine ecosystem, in that way promoting societal footprint. Resolve to set up an ad hoc committee to recommend how the IWC can in the future take into consideration the need to achieve food and nutritional security for many of the world's populations when making changes to the schedule. Instruct the Secretariat to forward this resolution to the FAO of the UN with a request for increased exchange of information between the FAO and the IWC. The proponents recommend adoption of this resolution by consensus. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ghana. Now, before I open the floor for discussions, I would pass the floor to US in their capacity as chair of FNA to inform us on possible financial implications. Apologies, US, I see Guinea, who is one of the proponents, didn't ask for the floor before. Guinea first.
Ok. Merci, Monsieur le Président. La République de Guinée se félicite d'être co-auteur de cette résolution sur la sécurité alimentaire et voudrait saisir cette occasion pour exprimer la préoccupation mondiale concernant cet épineux problème de sécurité alimentaire. Comme nous connaissons tous, la FAO, dans son mandat, s'efforce d'éradiquer la faim, l'insécurité alimentaire et toutes les formes de malnutrition. Soutenir les moyens d'existence des petits producteurs alimentaires, améliorer la résilience des systèmes de production alimentaire et encourager l'utilisation durable des ressources naturelles sont autant d'éléments essentiels pour remplir le mandat de la FAO et atteindre l'objectif numéro 2 du développement durable. Un monde sans faim, c'est-à-dire la faim zéro, sans insécurité alimentaire ni malnutrition. Il est principalement causé, la faim, les causes de la faim se situent au niveau de 2 aspects. Il y a le fait que la nourriture soit disponible, mais tout de même impossible d'obtenir faute de moyens financiers. Il y a également que la nourriture peut être tout simplement produite à cause de l'emplacement et des catastrophes naturelles. Alors, c'est pourquoi nous demandons, nous sollicitons un consensus sur cette résolution. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Republic of Guinea. My apologies. Any other proponents? If not, then I would now pass to the chair of F&A committee to inform us about potentially financial implications. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and I can be brief here. The Secretariat did not identify any costs associated with this proposal, and therefore there was no discussion on it in the Finance and Administration Committee further. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, US. Now we reached the time for coffee break. So I would suggest that we break for the coffee break for half an hour, and that we are back here at 4 o'clock sharp. Now we also have the full half an hour, and then I will open the floor for the interventions on this resolution. So enjoy your coffee.
So that someone has lost a Samsung mobile phone. You find it, please don't.
Another, let's say, half practical announcement, probably before we continue with our deliberations, is regarding the group or contracting governments that are interested to engage in drafting the resolution on plastic pollution. I would pass the floor to Czech Republic to say where and when they are ready to meet. Yeah, you can pass it to Czech Republic, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, and thank you for the suggestion on the way forward. And I would like to announce that those contracting governments wish to more discuss this resolution on marine plastic pollution will be welcome to meet in Aurora room at 8 tonight at 8 p.m. And Aurora room is on the ground floor of the Grand Bernardin Hotel. So 8 p.m. And Czech presidency and colleagues would be ready to discuss some remaining issues on this draft currently being present on the web page. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I use this opportunity to repeat again, because maybe not all the people were in the room, that the discussion on budget will take place for contracting governments only in this room at 6 o'clock p.m. today or tonight. And in order to enable these discussions, I would postpone the already announced bureau meeting, which we had it announced for today. I would postpone bureau meeting to tomorrow 8:30, so half an hour before we start our plenary in Faro's room where we meet, where we usually meet. Thank you. I open the agenda item 8.2, resolution on food security. We have heard the proposal from the proponents. We have heard that there are no additional costs associated with this proposal. And now I open the floor for interventions, and I have India. Please take the floor, followed by Morocco.
Thank you, Chair, for giving the floor to us. India acknowledges the vital importance of global food security and of alleviating hunger. However, we strongly believe and practice that non-consumptive use of cetaceans could also contribute to livelihoods. The very concept of life is the mindful consumption of resources for lifestyle for environment, one step ahead in promoting food security. India does not support whaling as a mean for fulfilling the food security and emphasizes on opting for other sustainable fishery resources for meeting global food security. Alternate livelihood generation should also be worked upon to compensate food security. Therefore, we do not support this draft resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Morocco, followed by Czech Republic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Morocco would like to thank the sponsors of this resolution, which would echo positively in a context of food crisis affecting many areas of the world and where developing countries are more vulnerable to the shortage of food supplies. Morocco supports this resolution in the sense that it puts the access to food as a priority for humans in line with the goal 2 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and wishes that other contracting parties would consider this resolution under this scope. Thank you.
Thank you, Morocco. Czech Republic, followed by Mexico.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and the Czech Republic is speaking on behalf of the EU member states party to the ICRW, which consider that food security is a vital global concern. We recognize the need for countries to provide food for food and nutrition, preservation of cultural identity, and security of livelihoods. We nonetheless remain convinced that most contracted governments of the IWC have already committed to the goals on defeating hunger and providing food security, as outlined in the resolution through various other international agreements and declarations, strategies and approaches, including the Sustainable Development Goals under Agenda 2030. We believe these are the most appropriate fora for such issues. Although the IWC can recognize the work done by competent international organizations such as the FAO, it is not itself the forum for taking resolutions on human rights or food security as defined in other fora. The IWC has its own objectives as set out in the ICRW itself. An important element of the IWC's remit is Aboriginal subsistence whaling, which is handled by the ASW subcommittee. We acknowledge that whaling is of importance for nutritional and cultural life of some Aboriginal communities. However, we believe ISW has a very specific purpose for specific communities. If the resolution is to be acceptable to all, the EU member states party to the ICRW would require substantial changes. We do, however, express our willingness to discuss this issue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mexico followed by Norway.
Thank you, Chair. Agradecemos a los proponentes la presentación de este proyecto de resolución que toca un tema central. Al igual que nuestra región, la de la pérdida de biodiversidad viene por conflictos de la tierra, la fauna, la diversidad, la inseguridad por daños a los cultivos, la perturbación a gran escala de centrales hidroeléctricas y sistemas geológicos, la pesca pirata y otros son los factores que nos afectan en términos de seguridad alimentaria. Creemos que esto es lo que tenemos que resolver conjuntamente en los foros multilaterales que tratan sobre estos aspectos. Matar comercialmente ballenas no es lo que va a resolver los problemas de seguridad alimentaria. La sobrepesca ha llevado a una disminución en las capturas en muchas regiones del mundo. La inseguridad alimentaria está más relacionada con la sobrepesca, como concluyó una investigación del Pacific Eco-Informatics and Computer Ecology Lab y la Universidad de Columbia Británica. En un artículo reciente de este año, de 2022, se concluye que en comparación con las regiones que son objeto de una gestión efectiva de la pesca, aquellas con una gestión pesquera menos desarrollada tienen, por término medio, tasas de captura 3 veces mayores y la mitad de la abundancia del recurso pesquero que las poblaciones que sí han sido evaluadas. Las pruebas disponibles sugieren que las regiones sin evaluaciones de abundancia tienen una gestión pesquera escasa y las poblaciones están en mal estado. Este es el caso para algunas de las regiones de los proponentes de esta resolución que tienen una de las puntuaciones más bajas del índice de ordenamiento de la pesca o FMI y la aplicación de la ley. Por ejemplo, las tasas de explotación para las que se tienen datos en África Occidental eran altas, 2.5 veces por encima de las capturas anuales sostenibles para los stocks con los que se cuenta información, por lo que se ha recomendado reducir la presión pesquera y mejorar la vigilancia. Esto es lo que puede llevar a la deficiencia alimentaria, entonces no podemos apoyar esta resolución. Gracias.
Thank you. Norway followed by Australia.
Thank you, Chair. Norway supports this resolution to put a focus on food and nutritional security for many of the world's human populations. We're making a change to the schedule. However, Norway underlines the importance of ensuring that all harvests of cetaceans are sustainable. It is important that the IWC Scientific Committee or other competent scientific bodies can set sustainable quotas prior to any harvest. This is a requirement for long-term sustainable development of communities dependent on marine mammal harvest. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Australia followed by Solomon Islands.
Thank you, Chair. Australia thanks the Honourable Commissioners of Gambia, Republic of Guinea, Cambodia, and Antigua and Barbuda for this important resolution on how the IWC could contribute to the pressing issue of global food security. We acknowledge that the risk of global food insecurity is a matter for all IWC contracting governments. A high level of global collaboration will be required to improve and innovate our fishery, aquaculture, and agricultural industries in order to ensure we can sustainably interact with our land and oceans, as well as feed a growing human population. Australia believes that the IWC and its members can play an important role in the food security debate. Through the leadership of the Scientific Committee, the IWC can provide information to the FAO and other relevant competent organisations on the current status of the world's whales, and perhaps even more importantly, on the role those whales play in the health and resilience of our oceans. For the IWC to take a broader, non-whale related role in research and work on global food security would be to go well beyond our technical competence. Australia could support a redrafted resolution that reflects such a role for the IWC, and we would be happy to work with the proponents of this resolution. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Solomon Islands, followed by the US.
Thank you, Chair. Since this is the first time for Solomon Islands to take the floor, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation to the wonderful hosting by the Government of Slovenia and also to the Secretariat for all the arrangements for this 68th IWC meeting. Solomon Islands would like to thank also the proponents of this resolution, and we would like to register our strong support for this resolution. Solomon Islands is an oceanic state, and we depend heavily on our ocean resources and fisheries for our country's revenue, livelihoods, and food security for our people. Our traditions and cultures link strongly to the land and the ocean we own as well. It has always been Solomon Islands' priority to ensure sustainable development and utilization of our ocean resources and fisheries to maximize benefits for our people. With that, Solomon Islands strongly support this resolution. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. United States, followed by Liberia.
Thank you, Chair. We join others in thanking the proponents for again submitting this proposed resolution on food security. We believe it is critically important to address global food security challenges, and we support the right of everyone to an adequate standard of living, including food as stated in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We believe food security is directly relevant to the work of the International Whaling Commission in the context of Aboriginal subsistence whaling, as we have stated in previous years. However, I would note this resolution goes beyond that, and we're not in a position to adopt it in its current form. But that being said, like other delegations, we would welcome the opportunity to work with the proponents to see if there's a way to address our concerns and those that we have heard from others here, to see if modifications could be made to this proposal that are acceptable to all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Liberia, followed by the UK.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank the proponent for this resolution. And Chair, when Liberia joined the IWC in 2018, in our opening statement, we made it clear that we support the principle of sustainable use, a principle that we still believe in. And as such, we think, given the current global reality as it relates to food security, this resolution is in the right place. And as such, Liberia supports this resolution and call on other members to adopt this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I have UK, followed by Brazil.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, just to echo the thanks to the proponents for bringing this draft resolution on food security. The United Kingdom has committed to important goals on hunger and food security in various appropriate international instruments. We consider the FAO to be responsible for global food security and believe that associated issues would be better addressed by improving the sustainability of fisheries, including by addressing overfishing and illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing. Harvesting of whales, which are long-lived, slow to reproduce, and increasingly impacted by a wide range of anthropogenic threats, makes them inherently unsuitable as a commercial food source. Whereas the non-lethal uses of whales deliver enormous economic, social, and ecological benefits to communities. We stand ready to engage in discussions and drafting on this proposed resolution, but we do have reservations about the proposed resolution at this present time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Brazil, followed by Benin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're not in favor of this resolution. We understand that the resolution is in fact to allow whaling in sometime in the future. We are not in favor of that. We understand that food security is a main issue nowadays, especially after the Ukraine war. But we understand that concerning marine life, the best way to guarantee food security is to preserve the marine environment and not to deplete it. Thank you.
Thank you. Benin, followed by Chile.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président. Pas besoin de grands discours pour savoir que la sécurité alimentaire est un fait. Donc, le Bénin voudrait s'associer à ceux qui soutiennent la résolution pour appuyer sa proposition. Merci.
Thank you, Benin. Chile, followed by Korea.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Para Chile, en línea con lo expresado recientemente por México, el Reino Unido y Brasil, consideramos que no es el foro apropiado para referirse a resoluciones sobre seguridad alimentaria, de modo que en esta oportunidad no vamos a acompañar este proyecto de resolución. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Korea, followed by St. Lucia.
Thank you, Chair. Food security is a standing issue that should be addressed with international cooperation as it is directly related to human rights and survivors. COVID-19 pandemic makes food security more difficult to achieve. However, Korea is in a position that food security in fishery sectors should seek solution by sustainable fishery and aquaculture. We cannot adopt whaling other than Aboriginal substances, whaling as a matter for tackling food security challenges. Commercial whaling can be discussed in relation with food security. Therefore, and it is clear that commercial whaling cannot be a solution for worst food security issue. In this regard, Korea has concern on this resolution. Thus, at this stage, we are not able to support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. St. Lucia, followed by Côte d'Ivoire.
Thank you, Chairman. For those of you who do not know, St. Lucia is an island and our food is linked to the sea. Consequently, Chair, we have absolutely no problem in eating everything that comes from the sea, including the lionfish. We therefore wish to give strong support to this resolution.
Thank you. Côte d'Ivoire, followed by Cameroon.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La Côte d'Ivoire voudrait remercier les autorités de la Slovénie pour tout l'accueil, pour tout le soutien et surtout remercier le Président pour la qualité avec laquelle notre réunion est conduite. Relativement à la question qui nous préoccupe, la Côte d'Ivoire estime que les perspectives pour la sécurité alimentaire de demain sont très importantes et que la présente résolution permet d'établir le lien entre nous, CBI et la FAO, pour voir dans quelle mesure la CBI peut concourir à la résolution de ce problème important et d'avenir. Pour cette raison, la Côte d'Ivoire soutient la résolution.
Thank you. New Zealand. No, excuse me, Cameroon. Apologies. Followed by New Zealand.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je voudrais, à la suite de tous les participants à cette réunion, féliciter la Slovénie pour l'accueil et également vous féliciter, Monsieur le Président, pour votre leadership dans la conduite de cette réunion. De nos jours, la sécurité alimentaire est effectivement mise en mal compte tenu du contexte que les peuples vivent. Et c'est beaucoup plus important pour les peuples des pays les moins avancés. C'est pourquoi, pour nous autres, cette résolution sur la sécurité alimentaire est une question vitale et nous la soutenons sans réserve. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Cameroon. Now, New Zealand.
Thank you, Chair. New Zealand echoes other speakers in thanking the co-sponsors of this resolution for calling attention to the important issue of food security. We recognise that the global community must address food security challenges for all, and we acknowledge that global efforts to address food security are led by the FAO, which is the global body tasked, skilled and resourced to coordinate this global role. We agree too that oceans will be an important part of the future solutions. Healthy oceans, healthy marine ecosystems, good fishing stocks, aquaculture. But like others who have spoken this afternoon, New Zealand cannot support commercial whaling as a means to provide that solution. We believe that non-consumptive use of whales provides much more certainty for coastal communities to provide for their future food security. So at this stage, we are not able to support this resolution.
Thank you. I have no more contracting government, so Antigua and Barbuda, please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Antigua and Barbuda once again is taking this floor, but for the first time on this resolution, which we have also co-sponsored. I took the time to keenly listen to all of the interventions on this matter. And we are very, very, very concerned about the response of several countries here with regards to a global commitment that all members of the international community has to ensure the food security of every human being that exists in the world today. Some of the arguments are saying, yes, we support food security, but we are going to tell you what you should eat. Some of the arguments are saying that, yes, we support food security, but this organization does not have the competence to make certain decisions about food security, even though we're asking this organization to make decisions on plastic. I'm quite aware that a lot of countries in this commission tend to want to establish a global thought as to how cetaceans should be utilized by the international community. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, Mr. Chair. But what is wrong is the undemocratic way in which many countries are trying to pursue their own personal interests within this organization. We're hearing some people, but some delegates, some member states are saying that the issue of food security with regards to cetaceans should be limited to those communities that hunt whales on an aboriginal basis. Who give the authority to these countries to decide how a common resource should be used by a diversity of people in this world? Who give the authority to some member countries here to determine the cultural use of food in this diverse world? Two situations are upon us here, Mr. Chair. We're coming out of a COVID pandemic where developing countries have been rudely awakened to the reality that when there is a crisis, it is I, myself, and I, we saw how vaccines were distributed and hoarded in the international community during the crisis when we all we all should be depending on each other. Developing countries noted that very well. And it brings us to the realization that we have to paddle our own canoe. We have to take our canoes and we have to decide on how we have to control our lives and feed ourselves especially. Then, as if COVID was not enough, bam! The conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine could be classified as a breadbasket for the world. We have seen the effect with regards to the domino and how one conflict in one side of the world can affect our choices and the way we eat. This must not be so, Mr. Chair. That is why we're saying food security go beyond what food is available worldwide. We have to think about food locally. I hear one commissioner, and I listen very carefully, or one member state stating that there is a better way to utilize whales through whale watching and non-consumptive use, and then use the money that you make from that and buy food. Where is this food coming from? Where is the element of food security through food sovereignty? Where are we going in this organization? As if that is not enough. We have a fiduciary responsibility in this organization to ensure that the consumptive use of whales benefit everyone. There should not be no cultural imperialism when it comes to food consumption. There should not be no bigotry when it comes to determination of what people should eat. And I listen carefully to all of the aspects of this debate. And we are imposing a Eurocentric view on just how developing countries should eat their food and should conduct their responsibilities in international organizations. This is wrong. It is not right. Let us wake up and see the effect that this is having on the right of people to survive in their own communities. We are not accepted when we try to migrate to other places. So give us the independence of our food, give us the independence of our land so that we can build and develop ourselves. Who give the right to some countries to determine that you're not eating cetaceans, but for all reasons, I should not eat it? That is wrong. Antigua and Barbuda is not a whaling country. I don't eat whale, but it would be remiss of me to tell another country that I don't eat this. And you take my advice because we're in the majority here, else leave this organization. Because that is what it's tantamount to. Are we saying that debating and discussing a resolution on plastic is more important than food security within an organization whose mandate is to manage the consumptive use of our source, it is wrong, Mr. Chair. It is dead wrong.
Thank you. Next on my floor is Kiribati.
Thank you, the Chair. As this is the first time to take the floor, I would like to join other countries in congratulating you, Chair, for your excellent leadership. And also, we thank and show our appreciation to the Government of Slovenia for the wonderful reception we received last night. Mr. Chair, in the essence of the food security, Kiribati considers this a national strategic priority, as well as our neighboring countries, both in the region and at the global level, as developing countries. Kiribati is a small developing country in the Pacific that share the same concerns over food security issues, together with the rest of other developing countries around the world. Kiribati has a full support to this resolution in line with government priority to alleviate hunger and poverty, and to meet its commitment and obligation under certain conventions and organizations such as the FAO framework within its 5 strategic goals. As our subsistence lifestyle depend on our marine resources, our sustainable use of our aquatic living resources is imperative at all levels to meet all the nutritional levels it would provide. With these few words, Mr. Chair, Kiribati support this resolution. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I have no contracting governments on my list, so I turn to observers. Non-member governments, I don't see any request. IGOs. Apologies. Dominican Republic turned on my list, so Dominican Republic, please, the floor is yours.
La República Dominicana es una isla. Nuestra legislación nacional no nos permite la matanza, ni la captura, ni la extracción letal de mamíferos marinos. Pero también entendemos que las ballenas vivas le dan alimento a más personas que muertas. Por lo tanto, no apoyamos la propuesta, la resolución, no la apoyamos.
Thank you. I see requests for the floor from NGOs now, so I will pass to NGOs.
Thank you, Chair. And may we join others in thanking you, the Government of Slovenia, and the Secretariat for the warm welcome and all the hard work on our behalf. This intervention is made on behalf of 15 NGO observers. A full list will be provided to the Secretariat for inclusion in the report of the meeting. Food security is a complex issue. We recognize and share deep concern for the very real threat that hunger and poor nutrition represent for vulnerable human populations around the world. We further acknowledge the important contribution that fish make in achieving food security, particularly in coastal communities. That said, we urge IWC contracting governments to approach this issue within the appropriate fora in the integrated way that UN member states have agreed to as part of the commitment to Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. It is of critical importance that the global crisis due to overfishing and the depletion of fish stocks as a result of overfishing, including industrialized fishing by distant water fleets, and illegal, unreported, and unregulated, or IUU fishing, which is the primary threat to food security of coastal communities, are tackled within the competent organizations through national, regional, and international cooperation. In this context, it is not possible to isolate food security as a standalone goal or to suggest that the lethal exploitation of whales should be considered as a solution or even part of such a solution related to the alleviation of food security. Whales, by their basic biological characteristics as long-lived, slow-maturing and slow-breeding mammals, cannot be considered to be a sustainable food resource for a growing human population under SDG 2. Neither can the exploitation of whales be seen as compatible with SDG 14 to conserve and sustainably use the oceans, especially as many cetacean populations are already severely depleted and face a myriad of other threats which humankind has not yet managed to mitigate. Under SDG 14.4, overfished fish stocks need to be restored in the shortest time feasible. This should be a shared priority across all governments in the room. We hope that IWC contracting governments will recognize that exploiting whales in response to food security concerns will do nothing to address the root causes of the food security threat many countries face. Conversely, creating a dependency on an unsustainable food source will only exacerbate the problems that communities in food insecure regions face. And that is a contradiction to the true meaning of sustainable development, which seeks to meet the needs of today without compromising the needs of future generations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Please pass the floor to second NGO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This intervention is held on behalf of IWMC and Global Guardian Trust. Portorož is a marvelous place. Just walking down towards Piran, all different kinds of different smells fill your nose, mostly stemming from the various restaurants along the way. One might easily be inclined to think that food security is not an issue here. Unfortunately, this is not true for many countries in the world. This is also not a guarantee for Slovenia or any other country maintaining its food security in the future, especially in light of the many uncertainties the world is faced with. Food security concerns us all, but it is a pressing issue, especially for developing countries. By tabling the draft resolution, the four proponents once again underline the importance of food security also for members of this commission. No one speaks of hunting whales for commercial benefit or to decimate their numbers. Instead, it is time to finally start to consider whales as a food source in order to prevent hunger in the future. The right to food is a fundamental human right. Also, the right to sustainable and secure access to food is a human right. If food becomes scarce, and if this commission still decides to prevent whales from being used as food in such a case, this becomes a human rights issue that this commission cannot shy away from. We therefore urge the members of the commission to support the document before us and allow countries ridden by food shortages now and in the future to also make use of the abundant whale species right in front of the maritime doorstep. Thank you.
Thank you. With this, we reached the end of interventions. I have heard support for the resolution, but also concerns regarding the wording, readiness to engage in further deliberations, but I've also heard no support for the resolution and a desire for adoption by consensus was also put on the floor. So I'm asking the proponents if they would be ready to engage between now and Thursday with those contracting governments that are ready to engage, and of course all others if they would be ready for some flexibility. I pass the floor to Ghana. Please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. The proponents will be ready to engage with others, especially US and others who have contrasting views, and we are ready to sit down to discuss and get back. But the point we are making here is that coastal communities have the whales in front of them, and we are not talking about commercial whaling. We are not talking about sustainable, unsustainable whaling. We are also saying that IWC should put food security, food and nutritional security at the forefront, or at least in various considerations. And we are also asking IWC to collaborate with FAO to ensure food security in many developing nations. Thank you.
Thank you. I would also ask the Secretariat to provide some support, and we will see when we can find some time and some room, and we'll first check with the proponents, and then we will announce it. Thank you. So with this, I would adjourn also this agenda item until Thursday. And I would move to the next draft resolution, which is agenda item 8.3, which is the resolution on the implementation of a conservation and management program for whale stocks aimed towards the lifting of the moratorium and the orderly development of the whaling industry. The proponents are, to my understanding, Antigua and Barbuda, but also support of St. Lucia. So I would first pass the floor to the proponents. Antigua and Barbuda, please take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, thank you for working with us over the past day or two to understand the background to this resolution and possible ways forward with regards to this resolution. If you may, Mr. Chair, or if it pleases you, I would like to give a background with regards to just how Antigua and Barbuda and other supporters and framers of this resolution view the importance of this very, very important initiative. Contracting governments of this commission would recall that in 1982, after years of debate, after much encouragement, much discussions, a lot of horse trading, the International Whaling Commission agreed to enforce a moratorium on commercial whaling. The enforcement of this moratorium came into effect in 1986. During the debate and following the enforcement, countries agreed that within 10 years, we should revisit the elements of the moratorium and undertake an assessment as to its usefulness as an effective management tool for what was then much depleted whale stocks. During that period, in the full spirit of compromise, we agreed that we should develop a process where a number of activities should be put in place to assist us to undertake that assessment after 10 years. The Commission sets its scientific committee to work. And the scientific committee undertook the mandate of the Commission and came up with a revised management plan that would enable this Commission to undertake assessments of whale stocks with the possibility to establish other than zero quotas for whaling. The revised management procedures that are contained in that plan were broadly agreed to by this commission, to the extent where many experts in the scientific committee concluded that the revised management plan provides us with a lot of risk-averse measures that we could safely use to determine whether or not we can safely manage the resumption of commercial whaling. Those are facts, historical facts. In 1997, we went through several iterations of just how this RMP could be implemented. We all agreed that in order to implement the RMP, we have to have a surveillance and enforcement mechanism, and we call it the RMS. We felt that together, a combination of the RMP and the RMS would provide us with enough safeguards to revisit the moratorium and to honestly decide just how we can move forward with our agreement to review the moratorium after 10 years. Mr. Chair, Antigua and Barbuda spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in making provision for traveling of members of its officers as members of this organization. We went to New Zealand, we went to Australia, we went to Monaco, we went to the UK, we had meetings in Antigua, several meetings to make sure that we get this process right. Historical fact. As if that was not enough, we decided to make several compromises to take the concerns of the like-minded countries. I think I can use that term because it's a colloquial term that we use in our meetings. We took their concerns on board to ensure that we take the precautionary approach towards these management measures that we were using for consideration of the lifting of the moratorium. I want us to underline that point because it's very important. All of a sudden, bang, let us stop debate the RMS and the RMP. Bang, let us vote in it. Knowing that the majority of at that point in time, it was around 60 to 65 countries of the international community that were members of the IWC. Knowing that the majority of countries are diametrically against commercial whaling, they decided that there should be no further debate on the moratorium, 1997. We are 40 years into this moratorium. 40 years, almost 2 generations. And what we're hearing now, the world has changed. The commission has changed. We are adopting a conservation posture in this commission. So we have moved on. And that fiduciary responsibility that we have to ensure that this commission undertake that responsibility of ensuring that one, we adopt adequate conservation measures, And two, we undertake the orderly development of the whaling industry. Became obsolete, inverted commas. And what we did in our meeting in Germany, in Berlin, we decided, okay, we're going to establish a conservation committee, and that aspect of management of the whaling industry should never again be on the table for discussion in this organization. That might not be a statement of fact, but it's a reality, because the practice today in our organization is to ensure that we never, ever, ever seriously discuss the issue of management in our organization, the management of whales and the whaling industry, the management of whaling. Mr. Chair, as an international organization that should take on board the interests of all of its members, this just cannot be the right way to go. As if that is not enough, Mr. Chair, we're seeing that most whale stocks have improved significantly. So let us concede that the moratorium worked as an effective management tool for whales. It worked, and we have seen numbers that even our scientific committee that we have spent so much time, effort, and monies on have said that perhaps quotas can be established other than zero quotas. We ignore all of that. We ignore all of that in this convention. And what we have done, we are doubling down on issues of conservation, which is important, don't get me wrong, critically important. But while we're doubling down on that, this is how the ship of the IWC is listed. Conservation, heavily weighing down our responsibility of management. I want any member of this commission to tell me if that is in keeping with our responsibilities, given the fiduciary trust that we have inside here, that the international community has given us to manage this very important resource. That's one of the questions that is emanating out of our proposal. Mr. Chair, it is within that framework that Antigua and Barbuda is presenting this resolution on behalf of many, many, many countries that are part of our 80+ movement inside here, that believe that the time has come for us to consider just where our organization should be going. Bearing in mind that there's this large elephant in this room that is not going to go away. The elephant of our responsibility to manage this whaling industry. It's not going to go away. The carpet is not big enough to push that elephant under. It's not. We need to understand what we are here for. Mr. Chair, the shame is on us, not just on those that oppose the consumptive use of whale, but as a collective, the shame is on us that we cannot get our act together to the extent where many major countries that are engaged in whaling has left our organization. Many of them, I don't even have to call any names. It's all there to see. We are only managing Aboriginal whaling, while other categories of whaling is being undertaken by other organizations. Are we proud of that? Are we proud of the dwindling numbers in this organization? Can we with a clear conscience say that we're still responsible and have the global responsibility for the management of whales and even for the conservation of whales? Why are we here? Are we here to satisfy certain interest groups and not others? Are we here to blindly turn our eyes on the interests of some countries and support others? Is that the role of a responsible international organization? It's a shame. The South Atlantic Sanctuary, 18 years it's been brought on the table, 18 years. I have much sympathies for my brothers in Latin America who genuinely believe that they can benefit from cetaceans resource in a different pathway than the consumptive use of cetaceans. And I respect that. I respect that. But what happened to those of us that think differently in this organization? Is it wrong for a different point of view? Is it wrong to demand that our point of view be brought to the table? Those are the elements of our proposal that we want to be considered here. I don't want no division of votes. I don't want to put this to a vote unless we can reach some semblance of consensus, because it's a fundamental aspect of our duties. I want to repeat, it's a fundamental aspect of our duties here as member states who are parties to this convention. There's a saying that while Caesar is manicuring his nails, Rome is burning. The IWC is burning. The interests of many countries have gone away from the IWC. There's a ripple effect. We have insignificant budgetary issues. We're running all about scampering. How are we going to balance our budget with all of the work we have to do? And nobody is looking at the elephant in the room. Those countries that we have practically forced out of this organization were the major contributors to our work. That don't concern us. How can you tell developing countries in this organization to increase their contribution by 8%, 5%, when we're not addressing the issue of what is causing this problem? We have to have linkage in everything so that we can understand the big problem.
I would just kindly ask you,
and that's
interesting. I would just kindly ask you to slowly conclude, please.
Mr. Chair, as a proponent of this resolution, I need time. I'm respectfully asking you for some time to present my resolution, because this deserves some background information which I've just presented so that we can think properly as to how we should go forward. This is serious business. I'm not pontificating. I'm not grandstanding. This is the reality of what is happening here. And it must be known. It must be spoken about. It must be recorded. And that is what we're attempting here today, Mr. Chair. This resolution in itself is simply asking for a number of things. One, we are asking that this commission welcome the exchanging of views on this very critical and important problem that is facing us. We are also asking for the commission to encourage the strengthening of collaboration amongst ourselves so that we can realize the objectives of this convention that deserve time to explain. We are also asking that in the interest of undertaking this collaboration, that we establish either working group or some kind of forum, official forum in this organization that will allow contracting governments to continue to engage in discussions and debate on this very important matter. We are asking for this commission to decide on this special working group so that a review of the RMP and the RMS, the work on the RMP and the RMS that we have moved away from for the last 12 years be reinstituted. And in the interest of time, what I would like, yes, we can laugh, we can do anything because that is the norm. When developing countries speak here, as far as many of us are concerned, that's irrelevant. We have no place on the international table. We are very well aware of that. We have no place here. We are small, we are poor, but we are proud. We attend the same universities like everyone here, and we excel well. So the laughter and the disrespect, we're accustomed to that. We can't even get visas to come here. We're accustomed to that. We are very well accustomed to that. And our backs are broad, but we are proud and we understand processes. That is what is happening here. So I would like, Mr. Chair, in the interest of time, if you could just put on the screen the 6 operational aspects of this resolution. You can laugh us to scorn, but we'll never leave this table. Never. We will always come to this table with the idea of our rights and our responsibility as coastal states. That is what we bring into this table. And it is within that framework that I'm asking for us to look at this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Antigua and Barbuda, for the interesting presentation and the background of that draft resolution. The Secretariat will try to put on the slides, but I would continue with the second proponent and then with the chair of an FNA while the Secretariat will be able to put on the 6 operative powers. So please, floor to St. Lucia.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This organization was established when many developed countries had decimated whale resources to satisfy their own needs, whether it was for oil or for lighting or for eating. And this was a long time ago. And the bottom line of this organization was for the regulation and management of whaling, not just the regulation or the conservation, but it was to look at whaling and what had been done to the whaling industry. It had been destroyed. Some stocks were down to very little, close to zero. And over the years, we saw the happenings. And when we joined the IWC many years later, we were faced with a moratorium. And I was fooled because I really believed that the organization would have been looking at the moratorium 10 years later. Some of us have grown old with the moratorium. Old, truly. I've been around for 27 plus years. And that's a lot of time. You know, a lot of time. And we really thought that this organization would have come to grips with the reality. Many initiatives were taken and dropped because we saw the conservation creeping its tentacles into the organization to ensure that no whaling was done ever again. We have heard that we will never allow the resumption of commercial whaling. We heard it. We heard it. And this is a problem. This is a serious problem for an organization, the premier august body given the responsibility to regulate and manage whaling. And I keep saying whaling, not whale watching. You know, in my country, we do whale watching, but we also, in St. Vincent, take the North Atlantic humpback. And we were looking at the numbers had gone up. I congratulate the scientific committee for the kind of work they've done over the last 20 plus years on determining the status of the stocks. But that has not had the rightful place in this organization. It has not been used to manage whaling or regulate whaling. So we do have a problem. We have an issue, a serious issue. And then we talk about food security. We're not concerned that some countries have historically captured whales and eaten whale meat. It's food, food for poor people. And even some of the rich countries ate whales. And I do recall our old Secretary Ray Gamble saying that whale was eaten in some countries in the north. I remember very, very clearly that whale meat was eaten. And now we, in developing coastal island states, are being deprived of the opportunity to capitalize on the increase in numbers of whale stocks and whale resources. Chair, I am hoping and I am hopeful that common sense will prevail, that we can agree to disagree, and we can live in harmony with the animals in the sea. There are a lot of them. And, you know, I keep remembering the minke whale. There was so much discussion about the numbers many years ago. But the numbers have rebounded successfully to allow a level of capture. But we're still talking about conserving the whales. Sure, we must conserve everything. We need to sustain ourselves. We need to keep them there. But Chair, we need to be able to take some. Thank you.
Thank you, St. Lucia. The text you see is now projected on the screen. And I would pass the floor to the US in capacity, Ryan, to your capacity as chair of FNA committee. to inform us about potential financial implications. Please, floor to yours.
Thank you, Chair. The Secretariat, similar to other proposals, noted there would be some direct cost, although they would be nominal, to establish a working group. And noted that there would be potentially some costs to support the Secretariat's work supporting it, especially depending on the amount of review and meetings the working group might have, in particular under paragraph 4 on the screen. There was no further discussion on that in F&A other than noting the Secretariat's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I open the floor for interventions from contracting governments. The floor is open. And I see Norway. Please pass the floor to Norway.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Antigua and Barbuda. In 2050, the global population will likely reach as a number of 10 billion on the planet. 10 billions that need food, proteins, and so on. And where shall these people get their food from? What should be the source? The sustainable harvest of marine mammals should be a part of this answer. So Norway is happy to support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Australia, followed by Czech Republic.
Thank you, Chair. Australia thanks the Honourable Commissioner for Antigua and Barbuda for the resolution seeking to agree a pathway for a resumption of commercial whaling, and we thank him for his introductory remarks. Australia's opposition to a resumption of commercial whaling is well known, as too are the social, scientific and conservation bases for our policy position, but I will not restate these now. Rather, and I want to be really clear on this point, we respectfully acknowledge the rights of parties in favour of resuming commercial whaling to table resolutions of this nature, and we engage in this debate in a respectful and, we hope, practical manner. Ultimately, as I will explain, we do not support this resolution. Our reasons are not a reflection of our opposition to commercial whaling, but rather of a practical nature. Put simply, our view is based on 3 primary issues. Firstly, we take account of the Commission's recent history of debating this polarising issue, and in particular, the future of the IWC and the way forward processes, and its failure to derive any significant agreement. Secondly, we note the globally low demand for whale meat. We are unaware of any current IWC member state that is likely to be making the very significant financial investments in whaling infrastructure, the necessary research commitment to support the use of the RMP, and the further investments in the compliance framework for an RMS to underpin a financially and environmentally sustainable whaling industry. Finally, we note the enormous scale of the IWC resources that were consumed in the previous extensive debates on this issue. In Australia's view, it is reasonable to expect that any proposal to embark on another extensive and potentially expensive debate on a resumption of commercial whaling should first address the serious issues we raise. These issues are matters for an IWC state or states who wish to resume commercial whaling to address. They are not matters for a special working group. We respectfully encourage Antigua and Barbuda to withdraw its resolution at this time, and in particular, avoid it being subject to any vote that has not been informed by a more comprehensive case to resume a debate on a resumption of commercial whaling. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Czech Republic, followed by India.
Thank you very much, Chair. The Czech Republic, speaking on behalf of the EU member states party to the ICRW, would like to extend their appreciation to Antigua and Barbuda for the work they have put into this draft resolution. We consider it is important to engage in an open and constructive dialogue on all matters covered by the IWC. We believe that the IWC has achieved a tremendous amount of work in the more than 3 decades since the moratorium has been established. We acknowledge that through the implementation of careful conservation and management measures by the IWC, some whale populations are increasing. We also agree that the significant scientific progress has been made by the scientific committee and that several whale stocks have increased since the establishment of the moratorium. However, the increase in whale populations has only been possible thanks to the implementation of the moratorium. Whales are animals with very long lifespans, slow reproductive cycles, and then, consequently, a very low recovery rate. Since its inception, the IWC has come a long way. The world and the global environment has changed tremendously. Today, cetaceans across the globe are facing multiple and cumulative threats. The IWC is doing amazing work on many of these issues. To prevent the recovering populations and the still depleted stocks of any future decrease, it's essential to avoid adding any other anthropogenic threats. Therefore, we consider it is essential to maintain the moratorium to give whales a legitimate chance of fully recovering and for all of us to benefit of the ecosystem services they provide. Furthermore, given that there are no signals of any contracted governments willing to resume whaling, and as such to make the necessary investments in infrastructure, etc., to do so in the near future, we do not consider it an appropriate timing to start discussions on lifting the moratorium and tasking the scientific committee with more work than it can take. The IWC has limited resources and we should use these as best as we can. The scientific committee is internationally recognized as the authority for cetacean science. It is important that they can maintain this crucial role. Regarding this proposal, we have many questions on how the proposed resolution would work. At this stage, we do not see any justification for the establishment of a new special working group tasked with restarting the complex and time-consuming process of a revised management scheme, given the limited Commission resources and proposed budgetary changes. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. India, followed by the UK.
Thank you, Chair. India does not currently support any other form of whaling apart from the already existing Aboriginal subsistence whaling. So we'd just like to reiterate that. Thank you.
Thank you. The UK.
Thanks, Chair. I thank the Commissioner for Antigua and Barbuda for this proposed resolution, his introductory remarks and the work that's gone into this resolution. The UK would also align with previous interventions made by Australia and the EU. You will all be aware that the United Kingdom is strongly opposed to commercial whaling, and we remain committed to upholding the global moratorium on commercial whaling. We do, however, fully recognise the diverse range of views among parties and the right of members to bring resolutions, and we seek to engage in this debate in a respectful and constructive manner. That said, it is not clear to us that the positions on the issues raised in the proposal has changed enough since negotiations on these matters stalled in 2007 to facilitate further extensive and expensive discussions at a time when the IWC is already facing a challenging programme and financial outlook. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no contracting governments requesting the floor. I have observers, and first I have a non-member government, so I pass the floor to Japan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And since this is the first time for Japan to take the floor, we'd like to congratulate your able chairmanship up to now, and you have 3 more days to go. Also, we'd like to thank the government of Slovenia to host the IWC plenary meeting as well as scientific meeting over and over again. And we do enjoy coming to Slovenia over and over again. Thank you very much for your hosting IWC meetings. This is also the first time for Japan to take the floor as a non-member government observer. And it should be of no surprise to any participants of this meeting that we do have an interest in this resolution, even though we don't have a voting right. What I like to say was mostly covered by very informative presentation by both proponents of Antigua Barbuda and St. Lucia. So I will not repeat it. What I like to say is this is not a proposal, at least in my mind, to ask for a simple resumption of whaling. One of the reasons that Japan decided to withdraw from this organization was through the many years of negotiations, as explained by Antigua and Barbuda, which I call peace talks. We spent long years, many meetings. In case of RMS, I count close to 50 meetings in 15 years. We didn't come to any agreement. And the future of the IWC process essentially collapsed in 2010. One of the reasons is that we do have nations here who regard whales as living marine resources, which can be utilized in a sustainable manner based on science with enforcement and monitoring. There are other countries in this organization who regards whales as either special animal or non-resource for a consumptive use, so that should be protected under any circumstances. And the difference of opinion is quite natural, and I do respect different opinions. The problem, if I can say, is we couldn't find, through the negotiation in this organization, through the peace talks, we couldn't find any ways to find a compromise or ways to coexist. That might be fine, but as a result, as Antigua and Barbuda said, commercial whaling is now conducted totally outside of our system or competence of this International Whaling Commission. This proposal is not asking, at least now, the resumption of a new whaling or expanding of whaling. This is only asking, as a resource management organization, to manage existing commercial whaling like any other management and conservation of marine living resources under this organization. As now you cannot see on screen, but there is a logo of this IWC68. And you can read it. This is the International Whaling Commission, as stressed by St. Lucia. And there are activities conducted. And this organization has a responsibility to manage it. So again, we are not talking about increasing or resuming or seeing new whaling. I see this is more of an attempt to find some basis for this organization to achieve its mandate, as well as to find ways the coexistence of variety of different ideas and positions about whales and whaling. Unless this is achieved, I have to say that the future of IWC is difficult. It's not just a financial reason. So I'd like to encourage all the members of IWC with voting rights to seriously look at this proposal and seriously discuss this proposal, not just to stick to the usual ideas of pros and cons of whaling activity, but from different angle of possible coexistence of different ideas, acceptance of different perspective, and fulfillment of role, mission of this organization. And personally, I'm happy to be providing any information that might be useful for the continuation of discussion as one of many people in the floor who has been around for a long time. We know history. And sometimes history is important to talk about the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I have another contracting government on my list, and for NGOs. I'm aware that it's 5:30, but I think, or I hope, we can finish within 15 minutes, including some concluding remarks, or how would we proceed with this draft resolution. So I would ask for your understanding. I would close the list, so it's Argentina and then just those that I have on the list. So Argentina, please take the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente. Agradecemos a los coproponentes de esta resolución, Antigua y Barbuda y Santa Lucía, por el borrador presentado de esta resolución. Si bien comprendemos la existencia de diferentes visiones, tales como las expresadas por los proponentes, la Argentina siempre ha reafirmado en el marco de esta comisión su compromiso con la vigencia de la moratoria a la caza comercial de ballenas, oponiéndose al comercio de cetáceos y sus derivados, a la denominada caza científica y a la caza bajo reserva u objeción a la moratoria. Esto mismo ha sido también expresado en las diferentes declaraciones realizadas por el Grupo Buenos Aires. En particular, nuestro país promueve la investigación y el uso no letal y no extractivo de los cetáceos a través de la promoción del turismo responsable de avistaje de estos animales. Actividad en la que ha sido pionero en nuestra región y que provee recursos a muchas de nuestras comunidades costeras. Reconocemos la evolución en el mandato de la CBI a lo largo de sus 76 años de existencia y creemos que el camino a futuro consiste justamente en continuar profundizando el rol de este organismo en la conservación y manejo de cetáceos. Por estos motivos, no podemos acompañar la resolución propuesta. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Argentina. I simply presume there are no observers, IGOs, that want to take the floor. So there will be NGOs taking the floor. I ask you to respect the time limit and please pass the floor to the first one on the list, which is here at NAMCO is, okay, you will be second, NAMCO. The NGO that has red mic, please start.
Thank you, Chair. It's Ocean Care, and I make this intervention on behalf of 20 organizations. A full list will be provided to the Secretariat for inclusion in the record of the meeting. We wish to highlight to the Commission some of the consequences of adopting this resolution by recalling a number of lessons learned from previous efforts to negotiate the regime to oversee the management of commercial whaling. Many of the non-governmental organizations that signed on to this agreement
have been active in the IWC for decades and closely followed the negotiations of the RMS, the Revised Management Scheme, between 1995 and 2007. We note that further work was done under the Future of the IWC rubric from 2008 to 2010. In total, 15 years of negotiations. We emphasize that preparing for a resumption of commercial whaling would be a contradiction to the Florianopolis Declaration adopted by the vast majority of this Commission at its 67th meeting in 2018. In addition, we question launching a complex process which has already failed twice. We also wish to ensure that contracting governments are aware that negotiating and implementing a robust best practice monitoring, control, and supervision system would be extremely costly. Indeed, the previous negotiations on the RMS cost millions of pounds and an agreement was not reached. Establishing and implementing best practice MCS provisions for regulating commercial whaling and undertaking and providing management advice on the scientific research that underpins the revised management procedure is a very significant undertaking. To be consistent with the best practice provision will require the negotiation, implementation, and oversight of the very least an international observer scheme, a vessel monitoring scheme, an international DNA register, an international audit scheme with sampling procedures, including market sampling in the relevant countries, collection and reporting of animal welfare data, and a compliance and dispute resolution mechanism. Based on the cost of implementing such measures in comparable international fora, an RMS regime would cost the IWC several million pounds a year to run. In addition, the negotiation of these measures is likely to require numerous costly intersessional meetings of the Commission, the Scientific Committee, and specialist working groups, and require the hiring of secretariat staff to manage the scheme, and this would also have cost implications. None of these costs are contemplated in the resolution or anticipated in the IWC budget, and no whaling nation has, to our knowledge, committed to pay them. Indeed, during the previous negotiations of the RMS, contracting governments who want to conduct commercial whaling refused to meet the costs of that scheme. Mr. Chair, at a time when whales and the marine environment face grave non-hunting threats, this is not the time to consider resumed commercial whaling. We strongly urge the Commission to reject the proposal.
Thank you. For technicians, only pass to NAMCO. For the rest, it's not NAMCO. Please present yourself.
Yes, it is Opus Oceani Foundation's honor to speak in favor of Antigua and Barbuda's proposal. So we thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving us this opportunity to address this meeting. Opus Oceani Foundation believes that 36 years after it was imposed, good faith and a commitment to good governance should make us all want to assess whether the moratorium on commercial whaling is fit for purpose. So in our view, this proposal should be welcomed by all sides of this controversial and, sadly, polarized debate. Indeed, it is startling that their demands are controversial. Regardless of the understandable passion and frustration in the voices of the proposers, there's no call here to resume large-scale commercial whaling. Their demands are modest. They just want to create an intersessional working group. They are merely asking for the right to due process and to ask tough questions, and for IWC to consider their evidence. Surely, we ask, the request to bring all the stakeholders within IWC together to discuss their differences so that they can explore ways to reconcile them deserves everybody's support. Opus Oceani Foundation further suggests that the IWC has a moral responsibility and a public duty to consider whether a cautious step-by-step lifting of the moratorium is called for. After all, the truth is that IWC was not founded to prohibit, as a matter of principle, commercial whaling, but to regulate whaling while conserving whale stocks responsibly. If the supporters of the moratorium are confident of their arguments, they should embrace this opportunity to prove their case in the open-minded, open-ended, transparent process that this proposal from Antigua and Barbuda calls for. Likewise, opponents of the moratorium should welcome the chance that this proposal gives them to argue for its managed and orderly abolition according to the limits established by the scientific evidence of the abundance of different species in specific locations. There never can be too much debate on such a vital topic. There I take issue with Australia. Therefore, Opus Oceani Foundation fears that if this proposal is rejected, it will confirm the impression that ideology trumps reasoned and open-minded discussion at IWC. Thank you.
Thank you. Please pass the floor to the next NGO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I make this intervention on behalf of the GDT and IWMC. SDGs is one of the most important keywords in the 21st century. ICRW has incorporated this concept into its current text since its establishment more than 70 years ago, by stating in its preamble that having decided to conclude a convention to provide for the proper conservation of whale stocks and thus make possible the orderly development of the whaling industry. This objective is partially met by providing sustainable catch quota for indigenous community. However, IWC have failed to set up catch limit to commercial operation for more than 35 years by keeping zero quota for these operations as in schedule paragraph 10E, with its intention to consider modification of this paragraph and the establishment of other catch limits than zero. Now, IWC, which is established by ICRW, is facing the challenge how to respond to the requirements of the convention and its stated intention stipulated in paragraph 10E. The tool necessary to calculate scientifically sustainable catch limits for commercial purposes was already developed many years ago as the RMP. Therefore, we consider that current draft resolution prepared by responsible member countries a timely initiative for the future of the Commission and sincerely hope this resolution be adopted by the Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Please microphone to the fourth NGO. Last one.
Thank you. KNABK Greenland. There is an inconvenient truth that we need to face. As the proposal also mentions, there is an overharvesting of whales through centuries that you have in your conscience. That is the truth behind the decline of whales because of overharvest. Greenlanders have conducted sustainable whaling through centuries, and this right is ours to keep, and the right that we have as Aboriginal people. The world consists over 70% of ocean, 70%. And most of our food in Greenland consists of marine animals and fish. Within fishery, there is regulation to prevent illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishery. And we see marine stewardship certificate on seafood products to prevent illegal, unregulated, unreported fishery. And the same can apply for whaling. Why not? Our problem is that we are prevented from making commercial whaling despite our sustainable use of whales. Why is that? Why is there reluctance to make economy based on whaling, which is our right? I believe there's a clever professor that has mentioned eco-imperialism as we have experienced today with food security and with the moratorium. It is as if the conservation has become a goal itself and not the whaling, as it is with the International Whaling Commission purpose to start with. It started because of the overharvesting of whales through centuries. That was the reason for the establishment of this commission. But within 70 years, the purpose of this commission has ceased to stop because conservation has become the issue and not the whaling. And I believe it is a wrong path that we have taken. And I'm sorry to say that you're violating our right to sustain not only in whaling, but also to make a commercial way to whaling when it is sustainable, when it is regulated. And that is the right you need to address in your consideration when you are stepping our rights as we have. There is human rights conventions that enable us to have this way of living, to sustain a reasonable living, but also to contain an economy, an industry that support the families in our communities. So I can only urge you to look at those conventions that were formed for almost 80 years ago. That is the basis of our basic rights, not only as humans, but also because of the traditional utility of whaling. Thank you.
Thank you. With this, we have concluded the discussion, and I've heard support for this draft resolution. I also heard no support for this draft resolution, and I've heard readiness to engage in debate on this matter at this meeting. So there is my question to the proponents, and I'm aware that you're both one-man delegations, so Secretariat would provide help and facilitate everything what needs to be organized. If you would be ready to engage in debate with these countries during this meeting, so presumably between now and Thursday, would this be? I see nodding. Antigua and Barbuda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Antigua and Barbuda would certainly welcome some discussions on these very pressing issues with the hope that we can advance with regards to this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Then I would suggest that the Secretariat, and namely EIN, facilitates the contacts between the two proponents and those contracting governments that have expressed the view to engage in further debate at this meeting. And with your help, you will find appropriate place and time how to do this. Now, with this, I would also adjourn this agenda item till Thursday. And as we have said, in 10 minutes, we will have another meeting, which will probably need a bit more time. I would ask if it's okay for the countries that will lead this debate, basically for Australia, and I think also US will play a role here as chair of the FNA. If we say in 25 minutes, so yeah, 6:15 in this room, countries that are interested in the debate on budget. And I repeat, there will be translation into French and Spanish provided, which on the other side means that you will have a limited time to discuss this. I also repeat that there is an NGO reception starting at 7. Maybe it could start some 15 minutes later, if possible, so that people who finish here and have interest to join would be able to join. And then the last information that I have is on participant list, so list of countries that are here and list of people that are here. I hope the Secretariat will be able to put an updated list, because at the moment, if you go to the web, if you refresh your web page, and you have to refresh your web page in order to get that list. It's not on, but I hope this evening an updated list will be available, so all the participants here can first know which contracting governments are here. And I would also invite you, if you see any errors in that list, either with your name or you being missing or whatever can happen, typo error, please email to the Secretariat. Which email, Rebecca?
Secretariat at IWC.int.
Okay, the general email, secretariat@iwc.int.
Thank you.
Did I forget something?
That's it for now.
No, okay. That's for now. The session for tonight, for today, is adjourned. I wish you a nice evening. Some work needs to be done still, and then see you tomorrow. I will also kindly ask all the delegations who are not governments and who will not participate in the budget debate to leave the room, so that it can be then properly arranged. Thank you.